No one silences me. Revealed. The maid's incredible response that changed everything. For Maria's heart raced in rhythm with the pounding bass of the Thompson Gala just beyond the heavy oak doors. She stood at the entrance, shaking as the muffled laughter of polished guests seeped through like an intrusion into her heart. But this was her moment, her chance to be seen and heard in a world that had always silenced her. Each breath filled her lungs with determination, and she whispered to herself, "No more." As a maid in the Thompsons' opulent home, Maria spent her days dusting the ornate decorations that shined under the grand chandeliers. Every brush stroke against the fine china took her deeper into a dream. She once held dear her own little family, thriving in a world filled with color and laughter. But the memories of her childhood homes in Mexico felt like distant echoes now, overtaken by the sounds of children's laughter in the neighborhood. Laughter that felt unattainable. Wearing her humble uniform, she felt more like a ghost, invisible among the abundance that surrounded her. But then came the news that would ignite a fiery resolve within her. Diego, her teenage son, had been bullied relentlessly at school. "You live in the Maid'S house," they taunted, cutting deeper than any knife. The weight of those words sat heavy on her chest. They mired her spirit, reminding her of the divide between them and the Thompsons. In that moment, Maria realized that the whispers of inadequacy would not define her family anymore. The night of the gala arrived, sparkling with glitz. As she walked through the crowd, adorned in a borrowed dress that swayed around her like fragile hope, the laughter seemed to taunt her once more. How could she, a mere maid, possibly belong in this world? But the thought of Diego as hurt fueled her steps. This year, she wouldn't be just an observer. Her heart pounded as she stepped forward to claim her place in the evening. "Before we continue," she interjected, raising her voice so the crowd quieted in surprise, "I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The initial shock waves of murmurs rippled through the crowd as she spoke, her chest tightening but her voice steadfast. With each word, she chipped away at the facade of wealth encasing the grand home. Here she was, voicing the struggles of those silenced by shimmering layers of privilege. But as her truth hung in the air like a thunderstorm, the audience's disapproval faced her with vacant stares, creating an expanse that felt insurmountable. Then across the room, a ripple of recognition ignited. One by one, others in the community began to step forward, sharing their own battles with vulnerability. Maria felt the tides shift, empathy bloomed. The room, previously shrouded in glitz, began to pulse with newfound awareness as stories of hardship wove a collective tapestry, threading through the night. With tension rising like heat from a fire, the Thompsons exchanged glances, vulnerability mingling with their privilege. Maria's heart raced, for she knew this was just the beginning of a powerful transformation. Would these moments of understanding be enough to bridge the growing divide? The future hung in the balance as the echoes of stories intertwined, beckoning with the promise of change. A flicker of hope danced within her, reminding Maria that perhaps silence wouldn't be her legacy after all. The questions lingered in the air, waiting for resolution, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. The murmurs in the room swelled, each one an echo of the stories being spilled out, a kind of symphony built on truth and shared pain. Maria could feel the energy shift, like the pulse of a heartbeat that united everyone in the space. She stood there, her heart racing, caught between disbelief and hope. The elegance of the ballroom seemed to fade, and in its place emerged a raw and vulnerable community. "Your actions matter," Maria cried, her voice growing bolder with each passing moment. "How many of us remain unheard? How does it feel to wear luxury while those around us struggle?" Words poured from her, unfiltered and honest. She caught sight of some faces in the crowd. The Thompsons were there, their expressions shifting between concern, pride, and confusion. A woman from the edge of the group stepped forward, her voice soft but urgent. "I've never shared my story before," she began, and seconds later, the room became a confessional. Tales of struggle poured forth, stories of loss, sadness, dreams deferred. Each voice built upon the last, a mosaic of shared humanity, striking from every direction. As Maria listened, her spirit soared. Here were the janitors, the gardeners, the nannies, the lifeblood of the very luxury surrounding them. Each was bearing their soul. And with that came a momentum she hadn't dared to dream of. They were all finally stepping into the light together. Enough hiding, she said, hoping to lift the mood. We've been silent for too long. It ends tonight. Gasps filled the room, but she could see heads nodding, eyes glistening. The Thompsons, once just symbols of what Maria could never reach, were now becoming allies in something profound. Mr. Thompson rose from his seat, his expression revealing a mix of shock and conviction. Perhaps we've overlooked, he paused, searching for the right word. No, overlooked isn't enough. We've been blind, he admitted, a raw honesty slipping from his lips. A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the audience. A vulnerable moment hung in the air, almost tangible. Mrs. Thompson joined him, her eyes gleaming with unshed tears. We have all been complacent. But no more. Her voice rose with newfound strength. Sparked by their courage, more stories rose to the surface. Before Maria could process it, Diego, her son, stepped through the flow of bodies, his face a mask of determination. He peered up at her, holding a handmade sign that read, "Let us speak out together." The sight sent tears cascading down Maria's cheeks as her heart swelled with pride. From the corner of the room, a tall man with calloused hands began to speak. Listen, we're tired. Tired of being the shadows in this glittering world. He was met with cheers, swelling the resolve of the gathering. Maria wiped her tears, feeling a charge of hope electrifying the air. They could confront the discomfort of the truth together. It was not just her fight. It was a community struggle. Change was no longer a distant dream, but a fervent tide rising against the old ways of thinking. But as the shared determination grew, Maria's heart started racing for a different reason. The questions remained: would this be enough? Would the Thompsons truly change their minds and act? Doubt crept in, even as the crowd continued to roar behind her. Overwhelmed by the weight of the moment, Maria knew she stood at a cliff's edge. Change was within reach, but it wouldn't come without sacrifice. The doubts whispered fiercely in her mind. Would they hold the line, or would the moment fizzle out, leaving her with nothing but regrets? Tonight, she began again, a spark of defiance igniting in her chest, is just the beginning. We won't be silenced anymore. The applause echoed like thunder, but uncertainty lingered like a shadow. How would they rally tomorrow? What steps would they take next? With the potential of change hanging heavy in the air, Maria's heart surged again. She could feel eyes upon her. She was ready to lead. But in that same breath, the question loomed. Would the community stand united when faced with the trials ahead? The energy in the room was electric. As the applause faded, Maria took a deep breath, the weight of anticipation filling the air like a thick fog. The crowd, once timid, now pulsed with a newfound spirit. Yet behind her confidence loomed the uncertainty. What would tomorrow look like? Let us take this further, Maria said, her voice steadying. We need a plan. A way to ensure our voices are not just heard tonight, but resonated long after. From the back, a familiar face emerged: Lucia, the housekeeper for the Thompsons for over a decade. Clad in her simple uniform, she stepped forward, her eyes shining with determination. I may not have a fancy title, she began, her voice soft yet firm. But I know this house. I know what happens behind the walls that no one sees. Gasps echoed through the crowd, curiosity woven with intrigue. Maria stepped aside, giving Lucia the floor. In that moment, her bravery sparked a different kind of courage among the onlookers. I clean this house every day. I've seen how things get thrown away, how money can change hands without a thought. Yet we are not disposable, Lucia said, fierce energy gathering around her words. Each of us works hard. We deserve respect, acknowledgement, a seat at the table. Applause erupted again, louder this time, swelling like a wave crashing upon the shore. Lucia continued, we have stories too. We need to gather those who work in silence. Not just tonight, but every day until things change. Lucia, that's it. Maria shouted, her voice lifting with excitement. A community committee. Let us create a platform where everyone, from the workers to the employers, can share their stories and create solutions together. The room shifted into a frenzy of discussion. People shouted ideas back and forth, their faces animated with urgency. Maria watched as people connected, faces lighting up with the spark of hope. Yet with each exchange, her heart beat harder against her ribs. Not everything was settled yet. Diego stepped closer to Maria, his small hand gripping hers. Mom, what if they just listen but don't do anything? What happens then? His question hung heavy in the air, a reminder of harsh realities. Then we keep pushing, Maria whispered back. We won't let them forget. The two exchanged determined glances, a bond forged in shared purpose. Suddenly, the Thompsons made their way to the front. Mr. Thompson's expression now adopted that of resolve. My wife and I, we want to join you, he said, his voice steady. We're ready to help start this committee. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Fear mixed with curiosity. Maria felt her heart race again. Trust couldn't come easily, but perhaps vulnerability was a seed worth planting. That Mrs. Thompson stepped beside her husband, her resolve shining through. We've learned too much tonight to walk away unchanged, she added. This is just the beginning of a long journey together. With eyes focused on their unlikely allies, Maria nodded. Then let us outline our first steps. As voices melded into a chorus of inspiration, a sudden crash interrupted the moment, a glass slipping from a table, scattering shards across the floor. Gasps mixed with uncertainty. The energy in the room shifted as all eyes turned to the source, confusion brewing as the night hung in the balance. Maria's chest tightened. Would this slip, this small moment, break their fragile resolve? But somewhere deep inside, she felt a stir of defiance. Sometimes, she began, a fire igniting within her. Crashing glass reveals who's really standing with you. As whispers launched into fervent conversation anew, Maria's heart hammered against the truth of it all. This fight was not done. Not by a long shot. She could sense the turning tide. Yet, something told her this was merely the prelude to greater challenges ahead. What lay in store for them when the real battles began? And could unity hold against the crashing realities lurking outside the ballroom doors? Lucia's voice cut through the renewed buzz in the room. We can't allow fear to silence us anymore. Her passion radiated, igniting a spark in those gathered around. Every day, we sweep away the silence of our lives, but tonight, we reclaim our stories. The crowd shifted, engendering a palpable excitement mixed with an undercurrent of trepidation. Faces turned to Lucia, softened by recognition. This was not just about employees and employers, it was about lives intertwined, about dignity and respect. Maria stepped closer to Lucia, her heart swelling with admiration. The stories we hold are powerful, she chimed in, tone serious yet encouraging. Every voice counts. We can share our struggles and victories together. We can shape our future. A woman from the crowd, an assistant named Elena, spoke out, her voice trembling but genuine. I work in the garden with the flowers no one sees. People walk by, oblivious to the hard work that goes into making this house beautiful. Yet, we are just as important, just as proud. A hush fell over the room. And then slowly, one by one, more voices joined in. I work in the kitchen, called someone from the back. You don't know what it's like to chop vegetables for hours without a thank you. Another chimed in, I clean the bathrooms. My hands still smell of bleach when I leave. But I have stories too. With each shared experience, Maria felt the walls of silence crack and crumble, replaced by a chorus of truth being shouted out. They were no longer mere workers. They were part of a vibrant tapestry of shared lives and dreams. Diego watched, eyes wide with a blend of pride and confusion. Mom, can they really change things? She knelt beside him, lightly squeezing his shoulder. I believe they can, Diego. Everyone deserves a chance. It starts here, right now. As Maria returned her gaze to Lucia, she noticed tears glisten in the housekeeper's eyes, but this time they were tears of hope. Each of us must take charge of our story, Lucia said, her voice rising above the crowd once more. We must bring others into this dialogue. We gather our stories not to point fingers, but to build bridges. It's time we held people accountable with love and understanding. The response was a ripple of applause intermingled with encouragement, a heartbeat that echoed through the ballroom. By now, the Thompsons stood rooted, as if realizing the enormity of what they had stumbled into. Maria locked eyes with Mr. Thompson, a silent agreement passing between them. "This will not be easy," Mr. Thompson finally said, his voice carrying both weight and resolve. "But we are willing to work alongside you, to hear you, to be genuine partners in this." A tight smile spread across Mrs. Thompson's face. "And every step we take, we do it as one community, connected, not segregated." As people began discussing the formation of committees and the scheduling of gatherings to keep this momentum alive, Maria felt a mix of exhilaration and worry. She had more confidence in the crowd now, but the reality loomed. There would still be resistance ahead. Suddenly, the hall doors swung open, and a group of onlookers walked in, their expressions curious and tense. Maria's heart sank momentarily. Who were they? Were they part of the elite who had always watched from the sidelines? Or worse, would they aim to disrupt the blossoming unity here tonight? The energy shifted again, tension redefining the atmosphere. Maria straightened herself, preparing to confront a new layer of complexity. She could sense that something unexpected was arising. What did these newcomers want? And would they bring destruction or hope? The answers felt just out of reach. Yet Maria's heart prepared for whatever challenge lay ahead. After all, if they were going to write their stories, they must be prepared to face every chapter boldly. The air crackled with anticipation as the newcomers stepped deeper into the room. Maria's heart raced, every beat echoing in her ears, mismatched with the thunderous silence that surrounded them. The crowd instinctively drew back, a sudden ripple of uncertainty washing over the sea of faces that had once brimmed with courage. The leader of the group, a tall man with sharp features and an air of authority, scanned the room. There was an unsettling confidence in his stance that made Maria uneasy. He took a slow step forward, the light catching the edge of a tailored suit, a stark contrast to the faded jeans and worn shirts that surrounded him. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice rang clear and commanding, "we've come to see what all this fuss is about. We hear there's some discontent." His words hung heavily in the air, met with a murmur of disapproving whispers from the crowd. But Lucia, undeterred, stepped forward as if propelled by an inner flame. "This isn't discontent," she declared, voice firm. "This is solidarity. We're no longer allowing silence to define us. We are here to reclaim our stories, to be heard." The man smirked, an offensive twist of his lips that ignited a surge of anger in Maria. She could feel the collective unease, but against her instinctive fear, she took a step beside Lucia. "You may be here to observe," she said, her voice stronger than she anticipated, "but you cannot extinguish our fire. This is a movement for recognition and respect." "I admire your spirit," he replied, though the condescension practically dripped from his words. "But you should know your place. There are people who don't agree with your mission. They might even see it as an uprising." An uprising. The word hung in the air like a dark cloud, threatening and ominous. Maria glanced around the room and noticed the fire dimming in some eyes, fear creeping back in. She felt a tug at her heart. No one deserved to feel afraid. "This isn't an uprising. It's a conversation," she shot back, her voice rising to meet the challenge. "One that's long overdue. We're here to build bridges, not burn them." The man's expression hardened, but it was the collective gasp from the crowd that gave Maria strength. One voice became two, then three, until their words formed a chant. "We matter. We matter. We matter." It flowed through the room, lifting spirits, weaving a tapestry of resilience no one could unravel. In the midst of this, Elena emerged from the crowd, eyes bright with determination. "I've seen what happens when we allow fear to take control. I refuse to go back to being invisible." She faced the man head-on, her stance defiant. "We are proud of our labor. We stand together." The tension in the room crackled as the newcomer struggled to maintain his composure. He could sense the unity forming against him, and Maria noticed a flicker of doubt flit across his face. Still he pressed on, leveling a threat. "You're playing a dangerous game, my friends. This is a family business. You might want to tread lightly." "Or what?" Lucia countered boldly. "You can silence us. But words live on, and so do our stories. You can't fight against our truth." The words transformed into a wave of courage sweeping through the room, electrifying even those who had momentarily faltered. Collective resolve swelled, reaching every corner of the hall as the crowd rallied behind Lucia and Maria. As the air grew thick with defiance, Maria felt her heart thunder in rhythm with their chant. This was more than a fight for recognition, it was a declaration of their shared humanity. They could no longer be shackled by words fraught with fear. They had crossed a vital threshold. And as the man's confident facade cracked, Maria wondered, would he retreat before their strength, or would he unleash a storm of repercussions? What lay ahead would shape the future in ways none of them could yet fathom. Maria's stomach churned with anticipation. What will it take to make them listen? She thought, bracing for the confrontation that loomed ominously ahead. Suddenly, the tension shattered like glass as the man took a step back. His confident demeanor slipped momentarily, revealing an incredulous expression. Maria caught a glimpse of uncertainty flickering behind his steely facade. The chant surged to a newfound intensity, resonating with an unbreakable spirit. We matter. We matter. We matter. Beside Maria, Lucia's fists clenched in determination. Together, we're unstoppable. Her words ignited a fervor, and the crowd swelled with renewed energy, echoing Lucia's resolve. Enough. The man bellowed, his voice a sharp crack against the unity in the room. You think you can just rise up and demand respect? His eyes darted across the crowd, seeking weakness, but he only found strength. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Maria's heart raced. This was exactly what they feared, the pushback from someone who had been in control for far too long. But instead of retreating, she felt a surge of fierce defiance. We know exactly who we are, people with stories, people with a purpose. The room erupted in agreement, each echoed sentiment sculpting the atmosphere into something electric. They were tired of being written off, tired of being seen as less. A ripple of courage stretched across the crowd, dancing in the flickering shadows of the half-lit room. Let them hear your truth. Let them feel your fire. Elena called out, her voice a beacon that drew them together. The crowd swelled again, voices merging into a powerful anthem. Each person in that room felt it, the rising tide of necessity, of existence, of mutual respect. The man's posture shifted, caught in the pull of their collective momentum. You're risking everything, he warned, a hint of desperation sneaking into his tone. You think this will end well for you? What's on the line is worth every ounce of risk, Lucia responded, her eyes blazing. We're no longer waiting for permission. This space is ours. Our stories matter. Just then a young girl in the back, no older than 10, stepped forward, her small frame barely visible above the sea of adults. A tremor of silence stretched across the room as all eyes turned to her. We matter, she repeated softly, her voice barely rising above a whisper. Yet somehow, her innocence cut through like an arrow. I want people to hear me too. The juxtaposition of her innocence against the gravity of their struggle triggered something magical. Gasps floated through the crowd, a mix of shock, solidarity, and determination. Maria's heart swelled, and tears blurred her vision. They were fighting for the future, for that little girl's voice and for every silent story waiting to be told. Seeing the wave of emotion pulse through the crowd, the man shifted uneasily. His bravado began to crack further, revealing the complexities behind his authority. This isn't just a game, he muttered, his voice becoming smaller. It's complicated. If only he knew the weight of the stories, the pain they carried, the triumphs yet to come. Maria's grip on Lucia tightened. No, she said firmly, stepping forward, her voice steady. Nothing is more complicated than suppressing the truth. But you'll learn that soon enough. An uneasy silence punctuated her words, and Maria caught a flicker of fear behind the man's eyes. This was their moment. But would it be enough? As that tension hung heavy, a new thought struck Maria like a bolt of lightning. What if he decided to escalate this? What if he turned the crowd against each other? And just as she wrestled with the possibilities, a shout rang out from a corner of the hall. Do we fight together? The question hung in the air, potential crackling between them. Maria felt the discord brewing as she gazed across the gathering crowd. Would they rise together, or falter apart? Are we ready to face what's next? Maria wondered, the choice looming like a storm gathering on the horizon. The air was thick with uncertainty as Maria looked around. Nervous faces shifted in the flickering lights. The once radical idea of uniting now weighed heavily on them. Would everyone stand together? Or would fear drive them back into the shadows? Lucia, sensing the hesitation, stepped forward again. Her voice a fierce flame amidst the gathering storm. What we're doing here isn't just for us. It's for everyone who has ever felt invisible. For the voices that have been ignored for too long. The words fired up the crowd as heads nodded in agreement. A wave of determination coursing through them, pushing back against fear. Maria felt the spark ignite in her heart. She took a deep breath, wading deeper into this moment. Yes, this is our time to rise. To share our truth loud and clear. The chant grew again among the crowd, the intensity swelling. We matter. We matter. They knew this wasn't just about them anymore. It was a movement that could change everything. The man's face twisted with mounting anger as he raised his hands, demanding silence. You really think you can take this from me? Look around. You're just a bunch of powerless dreamers. His voice boomed, but it trembled with uncertainty. His grip on their will seemed to falter. Maria took a step closer. We may be dreamers, but each one of us carries a reality worth fighting for. You underestimate the power in these dreams. She glanced around, her gaze landing on the little girl, who still stood strong, fortifying her resolve. The future depended on this moment. You don't own our stories. You don't own us. Elena shouted, her passion amplifying the energy swirling in the room. Gasps filled the air as the realization spread like wildfire. This was their fight now. Apprehension flickered across the man's face, but he wasn't done. The law isn't on your side. Do you think the authorities will back you? You'll lose everything. There was a blatant threat lingering beneath his words, but Maria refused to waver. Her heart beat louder than his warnings, fueling her urgency. We are the authors of our own story, Maria shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. Every fear, every doubt, can't you feel it shaking off? We are ready to take control of our narrative. The little girl's face brightened as she stepped forward again, her small hands raised. I want to be quiet. I want to be heard. Her small yet mighty proclamation sent shivers through the crowd. The innocent bravery radiating hope. A ripple danced among them, igniting souls who once felt small. Each whispered encouragement grew into a tide that clamored to be free. Hear us, someone cried, and their chants rose higher, weaving together like a patchwork quilt of courage, warmth, and unity. The man's bravado cracked completely, the cracks festering into desperation. Enough, he screamed, hands shaking. You have no idea what you're unleashing. Maria took another step forward, heart racing. This was it. The moment of reckoning. We know exactly what we want: freedom, respect. The force of her words hit him like a punch, as she held the gaze of the crowd. They were ready. Together. But just as they felt the tide turning in their favor, a heavy door slammed open at the back of the hall. Everyone turned, tension coiling around them like a snake. Shadows loomed in the doorway, figures appearing like specters of their past. The uncertainty returned, thick and suffocating. Without warning, Maria's scent of victory wavered. Who else had found them? Would this be a call to arms or a call to surrender? Who's coming to join us? Maria thought, the heartbeat of the crowd echoing with a new layer of anxiety. The determination still shimmered, but there were new questions emerging, lurking in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. As they braced themselves, she knew the answer was looming just ahead. The heavy door creaked as it swung open wider, revealing the figures cloaked in uncertainty. Maria squinted, searching for familiar faces among them. Each shadow seemed to whisper forgotten memories, and her heart raced as she recognized the stark outline of her old neighbor, Mr. Torres, standing grimly at the forefront. His typically gentle demeanor was swallowed by the storm brewing inside him. What are you doing here? Maria called, her voice cutting through the tension that hung thick in the air. You don't have to be part of this. But Mr. Torres stepped forward, raising his hands as if gathering his thoughts. Maria, he said, his voice steady though lined with fatigue. Things have changed. I've seen what they've done to those who speak out to my family. His eyes flickered to the little girl, who stood defiant among the adults. But I also see the power you're igniting. It's terrifying. but so necessary. That sense of dread they all felt started to shift. Behind Mr. Torres, a few more faces became recognizable. Maria's old school friends and parents of the children she grew up with. They had all felt the pressure of silence suffocating their lives. Lucia raised her voice above the murmurs. Join us. You are not alone. Together, we have a chance to change everything. Her words wrapped around the crowd like a supportive embrace. Slowly, individuals stepped further into the room, forming a ragged line one by one until a sprawling presence filled the space once occupied by fear and intimidation. Maria felt her throat tighten with inexplicable emotion. Other voices chimed in from the back, those who had been too afraid to come forward, but were now compelled to join in this irreversible moment. I want to share my story too. One woman shouted, her hands trembling but her spirit determined. It's time to stop hiding. The echoes turned into a chorus of voices, each telling their own tale of hurt and hope. The man who had tried to control them stood rigid, anger morphing into visible fear. He stepped back, clutching at his chest. You'll regret this. You're all fools if you think someone will protect you. His bluster faltered as he stared into the united front woven together by pain and purpose. But the crowd surged forward, a wave of collective strength that washed over the room, drowning out his threats. We want to be silenced. They shouted. No more hiding. We matter. Maria felt the heat rise in her chest, the momentum building into an unstoppable force. It was a beautiful chaos, all the voices overlapping, echoing the depths of their shared emotions. The little girl turned, eyes wide and shining with admiration. Look, we're all together, she shouted with pure radiance. The man stumbled back, fighting to regain control, finding none left to grasp. Whispers began sweeping through the crowd. They spoke of hope, of dreams made real. His facade collapsed more with every passing second, leaving him vulnerable. Just then the door behind them swung shut, heavier this time as the reverberations echoed like the final act of a symphony, a moment suspended between the shards of the past and the glimmers of a new future. Maria's heart pounded, the weight of the moment resting on her shoulders, but she could feel something break within her. We are the change we've been waiting for, she shouted, filling the air with defiance. And as she looked around, eyes ablaze with newfound courage and solidarity, she knew they were closer to a reckoning than ever before. Yet, a flicker of fear was still dancing in the back of her mind. What would happen next? Would the world embrace their truth, or would the shadows that haunted them strike back harder than ever? The crowd's passionate fervor swelled, and amid the chant of bravery felt like a declaration of war. Maria understood this was only the beginning. What lay ahead could change everything, but at what cost? The energy in the room crackled like static electricity, each heartbeat pulsing with a desperate anticipation. Maria could feel the weight of every gaze, every story shared anew as they all collectively drew breath, readying for the next step. People began to shift, turning their fear into a tangible strength. They were no longer just a crowd. They were a movement. And Maria could feel the hope thrumming in the air. Torres clenched his jaw, the battle lines already drawn in his heart. We can't let fear take us yet again, he said, eyes scanning the faces of the weary but resolute. We owe it to our families, to the ones we've lost. We owe it to ourselves. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. It became clear to Maria that no one would falter. They wouldn't be just stories to whisper in dark corners any longer. They would stand tall, voices entwined against an oppression that had silenced them for too long. Lucia stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly but her conviction unwavering. If we wait for someone else to fight for us, we'll be waiting forever. We have to shine the light on the shadows, expose the fears we've carried. A hush fell over them. The only sound was the steady rhythm of their heartbeats, echoing in the unity of purpose. Maria felt a surge of heat rush through her veins. If they stood together, shoulders touching, they could challenge the darkness that loomed. Together, they were an unstoppable force. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the back of the room. Everyone flinched, turning their heads towards the source of the sound. It was a young man, Carlos, who had always felt invisible until today. He stood there, breathing heavily, eyes wide. I overheard something dangerous, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with urgency. The silence beckoned a reply. They're planning to retaliate, he continued, swallowing hard. They don't take kindly to people like us, people who make noise. They're preparing for a crackdown. Maria's heart sank, but also ignited a fire within her. That dread she had felt moments ago transformed into fierce determination. We can't back down now, she declared, her voice cutting through the anxiety that draped over them like a thick fog. As murmurs of concern turned to whispers of solidarity, Maria pressed on. We cannot let fear extinguish our flame. We will prepare. We will fight back with more stories, more truth. We will drown out their darkness with our voices. With that, the crowd erupted into resolute cheers once more, fortified by the notion that they would not go quietly. Maria locked eyes with Mr. Torres, whose expression mirrored a complex mixture of fear and hope. She could feel her heart race as she imagined the battles to come. Let us gather our stories, dig deep into the pain and triumphs, Maria urged. They'll know the truth of who we are. We will not be shattered by threats. We will emerge stronger. The crowd began to mobilize, a flurry of energy as everyone rushed to gather, share and prepare. Connection and compassion intertwined as they formed small groups, the undercurrents of determination flowing through them like a lifeblood. But in that moment of forging ahead, a troubling thought took root in the back of Maria's mind. What if revealing their truths brought consequences they couldn't prepare for? What if their bravery sparked a reckless retaliation that put everything they've built in danger? As the noise of voices swirled around her, Maria felt the tension between hope and fear, and deep down, she knew that no matter the cost, this was a fight worth having. The door was now wide open, but what lay beyond could challenge everything they had envisioned. And just when she thought they might have a chance to reclaim their power, a shadow moved at the edge of the crowd. What or who was about to unveil itself next? A tense hush fell over the ballroom as the figure stepped forward, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding. It was Mrs. Thompson, eyes glistening with urgency and remorse. Maria, she called, her voice slicing through the murmur. I need to speak to you. Surprised yet cautious, Maria approached her, sensing the whirl of emotions brewing in the room. The passion igniting the crowd swirled like a storm at sea, and Maria could feel the charge in the air, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and apprehension. We've been wrong, as a family and as a community, Mrs. Thompson confessed, her voice shaky. Our wealth has created a wall we didn't see. I want to help you. Before she could finish, Mrs. Thompson continued, her gaze steady with conviction. I can't stand by anymore. If there's retaliation coming, we need to unite. The Thompsons have connections, resources. We can protect this movement. Gasps echoed around them, the air charged with disbelief. Yet Maria could see the spark of possibility in Mrs. Thompson's desperate plea. But can we trust you? Maria asked, her heart racing. Let us build a plan together, Mrs. Thompson urged, her eyes pleading. We can create safe spaces, advocate for change where the stories of those who've been silenced can be amplified. A ripple of uncertainty spread through the crowd. Fear trickled in again, and moments hung in the balance like fragile glass. But then, a voice from the back broke through, a familiar elder, Mr. Cruz, stepping forward with unwavering resolve. People are talking about you, Mrs. Thompson. They've seen the divide. If you're willing to walk with us, we'll consider it. The atmosphere flickered with a blend of doubt and hope. Maria's heart clenched as she felt the weight of every soul in the room, each heart aching to reclaim a narrative that had been stifled for too long. What could possibilities mean when trust hung on such a thread? Let us make it real, once and for all, Maria exclaimed, her voice growing in strength. Together we can face anything. With that willingness to bridge the chasm between privilege and struggle hanging palpably in the air, the room seemed to shift. Mrs. Thompson nodded, her expression grateful and solemn. Then let us set a meeting, she said, as energy surged through the gathering like a wildfire. Cheers erupted, revitalizing the scene as plans began to swirl. Little could stop the momentum now. Voices melded into a tapestry of determination, ideas bouncing back and forth like a vibrant chorus. Untold stories bubbling to the surface. It felt electric. But as the discussions gained volume, something deeper still lingered on Maria's mind. There was risk ahead. Change didn't happen without a struggle. She caught glimpses of doubt on some faces, uncertainty hinting at the potential fallout from disrupting the status quo. "Remember, we face adversity together," Maria called out, her heart steadfast. "Every voice here counts. Every story shared fuels our strength." The crowd nodded, a solemn conviction settling in. They were here to ignite change. It wouldn't stop. It couldn't stop. Their resolve carved a path forward, a march toward hope where fear no longer held dominion. As people huddled together, embracing camaraderie amidst uncertainty, Maria felt resilience blossom, growing brighter than the flickering chandeliers above. "This is where our stories intertwine," she thought. "This is the moment when silence ends, and unity begins." A gentle hand slipped into hers. It was Diego, his wide eyes bright with admiration. "Mom, are we really going to change things?" Maria knelt down, smiling through the well of tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, my love. This fight is for you. For everyone. We'll rise together and be heard." Then she turned back to face the energized crowd, voices echoing in beautiful waves of hope and solidarity. "Are we ready to tell our stories?" she yelled, her spirit lifting the moment even higher. "Yes," they echoed back, a resounding affirmation igniting like wildfire, reshaping everything in the room. From that moment on, the power truly belonged to them. As they surged forward into the nights to come, this was not only a fight, it was a transformative rebirth, the dawning of a new chapter. A chapter where kindness reigned and every individual, no matter their background, became part of the tapestry woven through their truths, together creating a movement that would not only survive but thrive. It was a beautiful start, one grounded in strength and authenticity. And in that moment, with hearts beating as one, they understood they were unstoppable. Now they stood on the precipice of change, ready to embrace what lay ahead, dedicated to each other as truth. If you don't want to miss out on the next step of this inspiring journey, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like immediately because it fuels our story. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to comment on how you feel about this incredible journey. Let your voices be heard.